Welcome to The Rules of Villainy, a podcast where three new trading card game players embark on a journey into the competitive scene of Disney's Lorcana and discuss their experiences, strategies, and fun along the way. I'm Villain Brad, or as some of you may know me, the Mayor of Lorcana, and with me today, as always, is my co-host, Andy, our podcast set champion king. How you doing today, bud?
Hey, man, what's up?
Not a whole lot. We'll be talking more about the set championships here in just a moment, and I know what a lot of you are probably thinking. Who let me do the intro? It's usually Vince, who's not with us today because he is actually at GenCon, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that shortly as well. But in the meantime, we do have a special guest, the set championship queen of St. Louis, villainous Kirsten. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Brad. How are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? How you got into Lorcana, who you are, what you do? What's your favorite card?
I guess that I kind of got to at this point, don't I? Now that the introduction's over. Well, like Brad said, I'm Kirsten. I'm actually Andy's wife. I am very new to TCGs in general. I have never played a card game in my life until Lorcana. So I'm really excited to be into the game and kind of into the community and checking out, seeing what it's all about. We kind of got into it just out of the blue. I think that we were Funko hunting because I don't know if you can tell, but I am just your average Disney adult who likes to collect Disney things. So we were hunting around our local shops, and I think he saw a sign for Lorcana and started to look into it a little bit more and said we should check it out. And we went out and bought some packs, and our wallet has never forgiven us since.
And look at us now, right? We're all on a podcast, a weekly podcast, and having fun with it.
I know. It's crazy. I love to make him listen to your own podcast whenever we're in the car, and he hates it, but I love it. I get so excited for you guys, for all of the fun things that you get to do, and being that special part of the community where you're really kind of putting content out and having your opinion shared, and getting the opinions of others.
Yeah, it's a great time. Go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry.
We appreciate you joining us and listening as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're in good company.
I've got some chicken nuggets on the line for it, hopefully.
No, you mentioned you're new to it. We all are, and that was the emphasis on this podcast was our journey and trying to be the best that we can be at playing it. Not, I got into it, and I tell everybody all the time, I got into it to collect, and then I found out the game is actually really, really fun, and then I started bouncing around to all these different stores, playing as much as I could, meeting all these people, and here we are, and just producing content, talking about something that we turned out to absolutely love. So yeah, happy to have you here with us.
Absolutely.
What do you say, Andy? You ready to move into our next bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We got GenCon happening. By the time you're listening to this, GenCon will be happening over in Indianapolis, and that's where Vince is at the moment. This is where he fell in love with the game last year, so it's his second trip out there for the second year of Lorcana, and hoping that he can come back with some cool stuff and some cool stories and meet some of you guys while he's there. If you do get a chance to listen to this before or while you're at Gen Con, check out or look for Vince out there and give him a hello. He'll be happy to talk to you.
Absolutely. He actually graced us right before we went live here. He jumped in and said his best wishes to Kirsten, and he was in line at Gen Con getting his badge. So it was kind of wild seeing all the people around him and stuff, but we wish him the best, and we're excited to hear all the fun events he got to participate in.
I'm excited for the promo cards he's going to bring back for all of you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Just saying,
I don't know how they hand them out there, but if he gets his hands on some extras, I would be very happy. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah. One of the things we have on the docket here is at this point, every card, with the exception of a few enchanteds, have been revealed by now. Do you guys excited about the new set now that you've seen virtually everything?
I'm very excited.
Yeah,
I'm ready. Set championships are finally over, and got a bunch of money saved up. got a bunch of store credit saved up at some local game stores, and ready to get into the new set, see all the new cards, see how they can augment my current decks, and see how they shake up the meta.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know how many times I've said it in the past week. I am so tired of looking at the cards in my deck that I've played for the last month straight. I am so ready for just like some sealed events, some fun events, some drafts, and adding in these new cards just to put in some more flavor into these decks that I have just seen the same cards over and over again.
I'm excited too, and that's a great foreshadowing into one of our topics later on with the limited events. It's one of those periods like 2 weeks after the set champions before the new set drops that I'm just playing around with decks that I never did before. Because like you said, you're tired of seeing the cards that you've been playing so hard and practicing so much with to try to win those set championships that, I kid you not, last Thursday night at our league night was probably the worst experience I've had with Lorcana, because I felt compelled to play my blue steel again. And then that first game with you, I was like, I'm so over this deck. I just want to do something. I should have played the fun deck, right? But then I felt compelled to actually try to compete, and it turned out to be one of my least enjoyable experiences. But not because I lost, it's just because the deck I was so over it. So that's why in the last couple times that I've played, I've been playing fun stuff like different versions of Mufasa and things that, regrettably, I haven't been playing around with the entire set, because maybe I would have had better luck in some of the set championships or something. But yeah, that's where I'm at with it too. I'm tired of my deck. I'm ready to try something new. I'm ready for these brand new cards to drop in deck test with some of the new ones.
Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, I didn't really have fun either, because I was just tired of playing my own dang deck. So
it was the only deck you brought. Yeah,
I was like, I thought we were doing draft. I just happened to have my regular deck with me. I guess I have to play it. So
it's a good deck though, and we'll talk about that here again shortly. Let's go into the card reveal. We have. Do any of you guys want to do the honors in reading this new card from set 5?
Sure, I'll do it for you.
Okay, yeah, because I've done enough talking for a while.
I'll fill in for Brad here. We've got Robin Hood Sharpshooter. He is a Ruby legendary card, 4 cost uninkable, 1 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 2 lore. He's a Storyborn hero, and his ability is My Greatest Performance. Whenever this character quests, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an action card with cost 6 or less and play it for free. Put the rest in your discard. And we actually, I think it was not
today.
Today, earlier before we started recording here, we got the reveal that this card is also an enchanted, which I think the card looks nice as it is, the regular one. I love how they have like the legendaries and sometimes even non-legendaries where like the background bleeds into the bottom of the art text. I think some of the Scrooge
frame break
have like the coin background to where the text is. I love the arrows that are in behind the text on the Robin Hood. And then, I mean, I don't know if I said it last time, and I'm sure I'll say it 100 times today. The new enchanted style is just perfect. I love it. I love the direction they're headed in. I love the colored blur of the background, the like super full art of it. And so at the very least, playable or not, this card looks really, really nice. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think it has its place in a few decks. I haven't gone through everything in the new set to know what will work around it. I'm kind of excited to play this in. Again, I've been playing a lot of Mufasa. I'm kind of excited to throw that in Mufasa and see if there's any kind of actions, because you don't want to play a lot of actions in that deck, right? And this is very much a card that lets you exploit actions of 6 cost or less. So I would have to look through and figure out how I would exploit that and have fun with this in there. But with a red-yellow Mufasa deck, I think that this could be a lot of fun going through your deck and trying to adding more Chernobyls as well, because that's just more cards going to your discard, right, to make Chernobog essentially free. So
they got
that's the first thought.
Song Chernobog too, right? I forget what card it was, but it's a similar style where it's really expensive, really big character, but it gets cheaper with songs, I believe, in your discard.
It's Kristoff. Yeah.
Kristoff.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
Kristoff,
And
actually. I
songs
think he's
are
9
actions.
cost uninkable, though.
He is, right. But for every song in your discard, he's 1 cheaper.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to slot into Steel Song really easily with that because you're burning through songs in that.
But even Ketchup Mustard songs, right? Because songs are actions as well. So this hits on actions and on songs. So, I mean, you can't have Kristoff, Robin Hood, and A Whole New World. But, getting a card like A Whole New World sung for free is pretty nice.
Yeah, maybe this is one of the catalysts to get Red Steel off the ground too. That's been something that I played around with a little bit in set 3 with the Pirates deck, which is mostly just location flooding, right? And some pirates here and there. But getting him out there and playing A Whole New World for free to refresh your hand and go from there, I don't know. I mean, you're milling yourself a little bit too by throwing everything else in the discard, but that's an option. Again, there's a lot of things to play. We're adding 200 more cards to an 800 card set already, right? So there's a lot to play test and figure out where his place is in this, if anywhere.
Absolutely. You got any thoughts, Kirsten?
No, I completely agree. It'll be fun to see what all works in actual decks that are playable.
Yeah, I do think it would be nice to hit like Pirate's Life. The 6 cost Sing Together, which you don't need to sing together, but 4 cost to get this Robin Hood body on the board, and also get that 6 cost sung for free where your opponent loses 2 lore and you gain 2 lore off the top would be pretty juicy.
It's a good one, yeah. And it's the same color too, so yeah, there's not a whole lot of finagling to make that work.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thought. I didn't even think about that. See, there's so many things to think about it, and I haven't put in the time to do that. But yeah, I do like the art. I like the idea of the card. I don't know in practice how good it is, but it seems like there's some spice there. So excited about it. I wouldn't be sad to pull this enchanted, but the number 1 enchanted that I want this set was also revealed today, and that was Scar. I've been asking for it since set 2, and I cannot wait to whatever it takes. I'm going to get that card.
Yeah, it's really nice. That I think you were saying that was your favorite as well, right, Kirsten?
Yeah, until I saw the couple others, new ones. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that.
I don't know. They're not officially revealed. Yeah, so but
they probably will be by the time it comes out, I guess. But
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
they're all pretty. Like Andy touched on, it's full art this time. They used to have a border around them as well as the normal cards, but they've kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say adapted, but expanded, I guess. It's full art. The entire card is the art now, and a lot of them look really, really good. So
I like how colorful they are. I know a couple of them from last chapter specifically.
Last couple chapters.
The wall are just so dull. They're so dull. They were kind of dull and dark. So like this is nice. They were really vibrant. There's so many colors. They're really, really nice cards that'll probably look really nice on display.
Yeah, for sure. Night and day difference from the first Robin Hood in the set 3. Like nothing against the art on that one. It just like this one's so much colorful, and I understand so much more colorful is what I meant to say. And the other one was, I know thematically it was a vision in Ursula's cauldron, right? So most of those were in, maybe not in Inklands. I'm confusing that with Ursula's Return. I apologize. But I do like it. This one just pops, so.
I got that party theme.
Yep, so, for the shimmering skies.
Yeah, I definitely like him.
Anything else about Robin Hood, guys?
No, it's a pretty nice card. I'm hoping to, like you said, I'm hoping to pull one. It'd be pretty nice. Wouldn't be upset to grab one.
Yep. Well, best of luck to you. If I get it and you get the Scar, are we just 1-for-1 trading?
Maybe for the Arthur. The Arthur is probably the one I'm going for.
Yeah, the Arthur's great too.
That semitone in the background. And again, the colors, the color palette on that is popping.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we'll see. Best of luck to you guys. You guys have had great luck with your enchanted, so
I don't
we'll see what
know.
happens.
Last set, all of our luck was gone. It said
You might
no,
have used
no
it all in set
sir.
3. Yeah.
Yeah, nope. Yeah, but hopefully we've already pre-ordered a case at least. So.
Oh wow, awesome. Well, best of luck. Let's move on to the main segment then. What we're doing tonight, we're talking about just basically the Ursula's Return set in review. What was everybody's overall thought of it now that we're at the very back end of Ursula's Return? The set championships are over, and we're just about a week away from Shimmering Skies. You got any final thoughts for, I guess, opening thoughts for your final thoughts of Ursula's Return?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty successful set, I will say. I think as a team, not just myself and Kirsten, but as a team in general, the Rules of Villainy team, got a couple other team members who aren't always on camera. We came out in force for the set championships and won quite a few of them, which felt really nice. It was great to see all the hard practice we put, pay off. But I think like we said before, I'm glad to see it finally get to relax and do some other stuff here. Now that the set's over, I'm still not sure how I feel about the month-long set champions. It was nice. It allowed me to do more than I did last time, but every single weekend for the whole month was kind of tiring. Yeah,
for sure. I didn't get to do as many as I would have liked to, just because it's the middle of summer and we have plans with every different direction and such. And of course, it's Emily's birthday month too, so that weekend was entirely out. No question about it. But the month-long thing, I empathize with you guys because I know how competitive you are and how much you enjoy the game. That every single weekend dedicated to it, to trying again, and it's taxing. Like I only played in 2, and I was tired of it. Just on league night last week. So yeah, it's wild. But I think I did like that they. And on the flip side, I did like that they expanded it out from 2 weeks, because it gives a place like St. Louis that has so many stores hosting it more leeway in scheduling it, right? So they're not overlapping with everybody. We still had some overlaps here and there because it's just everybody wants to do it on Saturday, right?
Right.
But and I think the point of it is, all of it is to bring people into your stores and reward the stores who are selling your product from Ravensburger's perspective to just keep people in love with this amazing game. And yeah, I can't imagine. What I'm trying to say is I can't imagine doing it every weekend, but I would also have felt compelled if I could to try, because I didn't get one I didn't get one last time either, but I didn't get one this time, and it's a bummer that it didn't work out. So I'm already looking forward to trying again on whatever, or we do know what the next one is going to be in a few months. And Mirabelle, right?
We haven't seen a playmat. Some people are hoping it's not the Mirabelle art, but I assume it's going to follow suit and be the same art for the card and the playmat.
Some people are thinking there might not even be a playmat since they upgraded.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Since they upgraded the pricing to 8 cards instead of 4 cards and 2 mats. I heard some rumblings in I think Facebook group, the large Lorcana Facebook group, that maybe they aren't doing mats at all.
Yeah, we'll see. That was what I really wanted this time around, just for the chance that I could have something official whenever I'm playing Ursula's the Illumineers quest again.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't come to be, and so yeah, we'll see what they decide to do with that. I do like that they made the top 8 have more pricing, especially for the bigger tournaments, because we know so many of our friends who would make top 8 and not get any pricing for it, since it's sudden death at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
it would be
that's where I'm at with it.
It would be really interesting though if there was no pricing past top 8. I feel like a lot of these events would just like end, right? If all you had to do is make top cut, get your prize, and then there was nothing else beyond that. If they
nobody
didn't
would
do,
play it out.
right, if they didn't do half
Yeah.
non-foil and half foil and then the play mats and stuff, I feel like you get a lot of people who wouldn't play. I mean, I know people who didn't play it out for the playmat because they didn't want the playmat.
Mm-hmm.
They just, got a card and went home, and they conceded to their opponent. And it's like, I mean, their opponent was probably thrilled, right? It's
Sure.
free victory, but it would be kind of odd to just have nothing to play for after making top cut in one of these events.
Right. That makes sense. I think my idea was like, without the idea that playmats were going away, which again, we don't know anything. It's just speculation that's come up in random Facebook comments and such, but was that if they were expanding the top 8, maybe what they would do was, since we've been to a couple of these challenge events, was that the top 4 would still be the hollow cards, and then the top 8 cards, the remaining 4 positions, would be the non-foil cards like they have for the Rapunzels and the Cindys from the prize wall at those events. And I feel like that's a fair trade, right? Like you're still every level working up for something more. The top 8 get the semifinalists get the non-foil. The finalist, am I saying that right? Quarterfinalists would get the foil, and then the top 2 would get the playmat. So there's always another level of prizing there to encourage people to keep playing at that point. So my idea, but I don't get paid for my idea, so
I think that would work great. It would, if I won one of the foil versions, it would give me a reason, and even more of a reason, to just sort of like let my opponent who hasn't won one get the foil version, and I'll take the non-foil version, right? That happens a lot with the playmats, where if I already have one style and the other person has the other, we just kind of make a deal and we say, okay, well, we don't need to play this game. I want this mat and you want that mat, so why don't we just take which mat we need? So it would, I think, share the prizing out even more.
Sure.
But
that's hard too at that point, right? Where like these set championships of over 16 people, 20, sometimes 30 people, they last all day. When we got to the end of the one we hosted, a game night, they were ready to close the store. Yep. we were like, we got still the championship to do. And you guys fortunately made a deal where you guys had already had a 1-1 from the day before at a different set championship. So you just did a best of 1 and see who takes which mat there, which was a really cool thing. But I think I joked about it on the podcast a couple weeks ago, was that when it came to that moment, I was just hoping for a dice roll, because I had been there all day setting up and getting it all ready and making sure everybody was having a good time. But no, it was, regardless, I'm proud of both of you guys, and it was a great time.
That's what happened with your championship match, right, Kirsten?
Yeah, we didn't play it out. I didn't want to play it out. Essentially, Andy had already won a championship mat. I did not want a championship mat. I don't like the big bold text on the mats. I'd rather have just the plain
art.
mat. Yep, just with the art. And I was going into basically the match where it would be going in for the championship mat, and I was like, I don't feel like playing anymore. I'm here. I'm happy to be here. I don't care which mat I get. I'll take the non-champion mat if you'd like the champion mat.
Didn't want that. You didn't want that feeling of satisfaction of winning it all.
I was happy with second place, to be honest. I was happy to be where I was, and that was all that meant. That was all that mattered to me at that point. I was just happy to have made it as far as I did, and I wanted the plain mat, and I was happy to take the plain mat and be done for the day, because I was tuckered out. It was a Sunday. We'd already done one the day before. Thankfully, it wasn't a long one, but I had done a race with my mom the morning prior, and I was just not having it that weekend. I was ready to be done. So,
well, listen, I'm impressed that you guys had so many options and choices to make in those situations, because I've yet to make a top cut in any of these. So this next set is going to be very much trying harder and figuring out what I can do. And that's what the point of this podcast and everything that we do with the game is to see where we can improve and work together and try to find that success. So congrats to you guys on all of those.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, set championships out of the way. Do you guys have any advice for the next ones? It looks like we're going to talk about some focused practicing. How would you guys define that?
Yeah, I think one thing that we sort of learned between the last set champs and the last meta in general and this one, last set we did a lot of just sort of grinding games. We would go to league night on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. Sometimes we'd go to like a win-a-box tournament on Saturday. We'd rope Brad into it as well. And
hey, I won that one.
Yeah, you did. And so we thought we were getting a lot of really good practice in. We were just trying to grind out. We knew our decks really well. We felt really comfortable, but we still struggled in a lot of the matches that we played. And yeah, we had some success. I was able to win a Stitch. She made top cut.
One of us had success. I made top cut once and immediately got eliminated.
I got eliminated in that same event. There was some tough competition there, but this time around we took some advice from some other great content creators. I know, shout out to Podcana. I love that podcast a bunch. And we realized that sort of just focusing in on what we needed to improve and having good quality games of practice ultimately became more valuable than having quantity, quality over quantity. So we still played at a lot of our regular leagues. We'd still go hang out, but we'd also try and spend, some time every night before or after dinner or something, playing one or two games, focusing in on a matchup that we knew was troubling. It was kind of helpful because for the most part we play the same deck, play Ruby Amethyst together, but I definitely like trying other decks until she whoops my butt in every practice game using Ruby Amethyst, and I realized, okay, fine, I guess that's the best deck. Let's do that. And ultimately, I think that really helped that, and just sort of focusing on our fundamentals like decision making and sequencing and things like that. And then just playing that consistently, remembering what we learned, not getting tilted based on variance playing. Yeah, sometimes you play. I think Kirsten played 7 out of 11. She did 2 set championships, a 6-rounder and a 5-rounder, and 7 out of the 11 Swiss rounds between those two events were against Bucky. And at that point, ready to throw in the towel, but you hammer out the matches against the Bucky. And honestly, I just helping her practice. By the end of this event, I almost kind of wanted to play against the Bucky. Like, I felt comfortable in that matchup more so than I did sometimes in some of these other matchups when you got crazy people out there coming in with like blue Fossa or fairy Fossa or
yes.
The hyper aggros.
Yeah, the hyper aggros that you run into, or even I played a ketchup mustard in one of the set champions I was in, and some of these odd things, it just that focus practice definitely, I think, helps out a lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think that's what helped me the most. Like you said, I went against a lot of Buckies early on in the set championship for the Ursula, and I was ready to flip over the tables every game. Maybe 1 or 2 of them I got lucky, and one of them was quite satisfying because I was not on the dice. I lost the dice roll. I wasn't on the draw, and my opponent, he was a very confident older male who was very sure of himself that he would beat me because he was on the play. So being able to beat him and his Bucky deck on the
Had to
draw
feel
was
good.
very satisfying.
Twice.
And I think that, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was very satisfying. But still, at the end of the day, I was like, I don't know how to play against this deck and be successful at the end of the day. So we would come home. I think we probably came home after a set championship. I'm like, I need to practice against this. Okay, well, what do you want me to play? I don't want to play against the Bucky, but I need to practice against
Sure.
the Bucky, and I have to like force it out of my mouth that the Bucky, I gotta play against the Bucky. You know, just so disheartening to have to say I want to play against the Bucky. So, but I knew I had to practice against it, so we would sit down and practice, and I just slowly learned that I just have to not play anything as much as possible unless it gives me something back. Which is definitely hard coming in from never doing a card game before and having experience, even online games, Hearthstone and things like that. I'd never played any of those, and I was like, oh, that's boring.
Yeah.
It just never appealed to me. So I don't even have those like basic mechanics of ATCG built into me. So I had to learn to like hold off on doing things because it's not worth doing. Especially against a Bucky deck that makes you lose all your cards. What's the point in playing a Chernobog's Followers and getting a card early on? Might as well just save it and ink it, and hope that you can get to be prepared. So
it's kind of funny. You mentioned that of just how frustrating it was and how it changed, the way you play and the way you think about the game. Because I'll never forget our first league night after either Chicago or Atlanta. You came in with that Bucky deck or Diablo deck, and you were taking names. You were a different player. You were like, draw, discard. Just every trigger, you were saying it was such fierceness that I was like, who is this woman?
I think I was just so butthurt and salty from especially a game in Chicago where it was live or die time, essentially. And I got O2'd by a Bucky deck, and he was ruthless about it. So I was like, okay, maybe I should try this deck. And I went 3-0 that night, and it felt awful. I was like, I never want to play this again. And I have not picked that deck up since that night because, like, it wasn't fun to play. It was not fun to watch my opponents play me.
It was not fun to play you.
I'm sure it wasn't.
You were somebody completely different.
It literally takes you over and it turns you into just like this robot that's like, discard. Let me draw. Like, it's
in contrast to this past Thursday night, the one I talked about earlier, where I was just having a bad time, you were so apologetic at beating me, just like, I'm sorry, because you were getting all the draws and just playing as well as you always do. And I was like, don't apologize. This is the game. But then I think back to a month ago when you were like, discard that card. It was absolutely crazy, but it's
I'll never play that deck again. I don't like being that person. I don't want to play that deck.
It was
I
such
am
a
very
sight to
happy
see
that he's going away. I think on the topic of Bucky, though, and like in relation to set championships, I think one of the most interesting things that I saw was from the start of set championships to the end of set championships, the number of people playing Bucky drastically dwindled, in my opinion. The first set championship we played in, it was like maybe 2 hours away or so. So it was a bit of a drive closer to Chicago. So it was a good bit of people, 40, 50 maybe, I think.
Yeah, it was 40 at least.
Probably half of those people were Bucky decks.
It was a lot.
And then it would be like half at the next place, and then it would be maybe a quarter, and then like slowly it was like, oh, there's like three Bucky decks out of 20
That's interesting.
people.
I would think toward the end of the set championships, people were getting more desperate and just trying to, like, well, better play Bucky while I can since he's getting the errata.
I really think that it's, I mean, I know that some people actually really enjoy that deck and have been playing that type of deck for a while. But I think that a lot of the people that picked it up to like be like, oh, this is the winning deck, realized it's kind of a dice roll if you actually win with that deck because you need the perfect combination.
Yeah. Buster. All right. Is there anything else, Andy, you want to cover on the practice, the focus practice, or should we move on to the meta comparison?
No, that sounds good. Yeah, this set meta versus last set meta. How
do you feel about it?
I mean, I think I probably speak for everyone when I say we all hate Bucky, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of ruined it. I did really like where like Red Blue was going. I like where Ruby Amethyst ended up. My last set championships, I was in the semifinal match, but my teammate Ron had already gotten the other one done, so I knew I was just going to be able to tie with him and go home. So it was like the last match of the night. I had like 15 cards in my hand. I was like, this is fun.
It was
This
a
is
lot.
good. And the matches were close. Like they were just going for a dime or Tamatoa. I was going for the goat or the bounce or something. And I think I won by be preparing my own goat at the end.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of fun. But man, Bucky really stinks. So that's why I said it before, I'm really interested to hear from Vince when he goes to Toronto and just the community in general as well of how this meta sort of feels, without Bucky, right?
How it could have been. Yeah.
Exactly. It'll be really interesting for sure. What about you, Kirsten? You like this meta, last meta?
I'm excited to see what's to come. I think that with the flavor of all the new cards that are coming out, that we're going to see color combinations that aren't normal. At least in the last meta, especially with Bucky going away, we might be seeing other things. I mean, even with Bucky going away, I saw green-yellow at the end of the set championships, odd combinations that you wouldn't normally put together. So I think it'll be interesting with all the new cards coming out to see what kind of combinations the folks with the brighter minds than mine will come up with.
There's a lot of rumbling about a Blurple finally having its place.
I know, and
blue purple with the
I'm
new
excited for
Mufasa
that.
and Cogsworth. The one drop Cogsworth in purple seems to be busted because I think he's common. He might be uncommon at best, but he's a one drop inkable that gives rush, I think, to any character on board or something like that. Yeah. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but it was one of those cards. It's like that's an instant draft or a play in the limited events, which we're going to talk about here in just a second. But yeah, I feel like the blue purple combination is something I've seen people play around with, and maybe not this set, but the last one for sure. And I'm definitely interested to see where that goes.
I know at some point this set currently, I had put together a blue purple deck. I think I called it Blursula because I put the big Ursula in there.
Yeah.
And I played around with that at one of the local stores just for fun at one of the regular days, I think. And it was pretty fun. I think it might, flesh into an actual deck, and I think it would be fun to put the Amethyst cards from Ruby Amethyst in there and put a bunch of bounce and maybe get a bunch of ink and do a whole lot of bouncing around,
especially
in one
with
turn.
that new Merlin. You got to shift them to get that ability, but just to search through your deck for any card I think it's to bring to your hand, but still, that's such a powerful thing. And you mentioned you played Blurple a little bit. I know Andy did because we did a Grandma Tala match one night at one of our league nights where he surprised me. I thought it was going to be blue steel, and he was doing blue purple as well, and we had a lot of fun with that. But yeah, I'm interested to see. I mean, that's just one of the many options that we have. And again, 200 cards. There's some of them I probably haven't even seen yet. So it's going to be a lot of.
There's many I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen a lot of them. I gotta catch up on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so any last thoughts on Ursula's return, the set as a whole, the meta?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm ready for the next one.
Go away again, Ursula, because we're about to move into Shimmering Skies in, I guess a week from when you're hearing this. It'll be dropping on August 9th, and that's a good time to talk about something I talked about on the podcast, one of the first few episodes. A great time to get into limited events to learn the new cards. Do either of you want to discuss or go into what a draft or sealed event are?
Sure. I think Brad's explained it a little bit before, but generally when a new set drops, most people don't know the cards, so it's really hard to have your regular league night, especially some of the leagues we go to are on Sunday night, right? Imagine the cards dropping on Friday and then Sunday night you're expected to have a deck built. You haven't some people haven't seen most of the cards. Even if you know what cards you want for your deck, you have to go buy them all and rip all the packs open. And so a lot of times stores will have sort of these launch events where they do things like starter deck tournaments. Those are really great if you're newer to the game and you sort of want to get into the game. I know during the Stitch set championships, we played in one of them where I think this couple had showed up and they thought it was just sort of a regular league night, and they hung out and they played in the Stitch set championship. But one guy sat down and was like, "You're like the first person that isn't my wife that I've played Lorcana against," And it's like, so if you show up and it's in this competitive mode of set championships and you want to get into the game now with the new set, is a great time. You play a starter deck tournament. Everyone gets one of the 2 starter decks. You just play a regular tournament. Very even and fair. You learn about a lot of the new cards. In fact, I think this new set has, the starter decks have only cards from the new set in them. Did I hear that right?
I think that's true. I think it's the first time in a couple sets that they're exclusive to just this set, because I think sets, maybe even 2, sets 2, 3, and 4 all had set 1 cards or previous set cards in it to fill it out.
They did.
Yeah.
I did not hear that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's really cool. You could play like a starter deck tournament. The other 2 main events, the ones that I and Kirsten really enjoy to play, I know Brad plays in a bunch of these, are called either sealed or draft. Generally, you do sealed first early on, and then maybe after the first week, you start doing some more of the draft events. Although I know some of the stores even have, like, I think they do like the triathlon or the trifecta of starter deck, followed by sealed, followed by draft. I mean, if you kind of do all 3 of them, you kind of know the cards a little better. But a sealed event, you're going to get 6 booster packs. So it typically costs about 6 booster packs worth, sometimes a little bit more. You got to help fund the LGS store. Sometimes they put a prize pack into the pool for your entry. You get these 6 booster packs from the new set, rip them open, and you make a deck out of it. Your deck is only 40 cards, and you can use all the colors. There's really no restrictions beyond
no limitations
that. Yeah, you can have more than 4 of a card if you happen to get it, like some of the commons or something. I know one time I played in an event, I had 5 Gunthers. I don't know, he's like a shoemaker or something like that.
He's something from Tangled. I'm not sure what he does.
But you basically just rip open your packs, look through all of your stuff, read all the cards, take some time, usually get 30 minutes or so, put your deck together, sleeve it up. Sealed and draft both, since they're less than 50 cards in the deck. They're only 40. It's a great opportunity to use some of those sort of fun sleeves that you have. Kirsten and I both have a couple sets of sleeves that are only 50 cards in them, so you can't use them for a full deck of Lorcana, but you can use them in draft, right? So 6 packs, rip them open, build your deck. Then it's a regular tournament from there. You play the game just as you normally would. It becomes a completely sort of different game because you're limited to that set. That's why they call it.
It's an even playing field.
Yeah. And then after you do some sealed, you learn the cards a little more. You do draft. It's very similar. You get 4 packs and you rip 1 pack at a time, and you take a card from the pack and you pass it around the table. Generally do a table of like 8 people or so. Usually wait till you know the cards a little more, because in that case you got to decide between a bunch of cards, and then those cards go away and someone else is going to take them. So, but in the end, you're building that same 40 card deck, and you're essentially playing in a very similar way. You're going to have a very similar deck. You're going to have a lot of similar interactions with the other decks, and it's going to be a lot different than constructed. If you haven't played any, I definitely recommend doing some.
Yeah, what's really interesting about between the 2 of them is the sealed is you play with what you get. You can play with all your cards, or you can, increase your draw percentage by moving down to 40. But draft adds that extra element of thinking. Like when you start to know the cards, or when you have an idea of how the game works and what cards do, and how to use them to your advantage, then at this point now you're putting that extra level of thought into, I should draft this card because, one, I don't want them to use that on me, or two, I just know how it's, I understand this card and how it's good for this format. And like for set 3, for example, when they introduced locations, a lot of people figured out pretty quickly, like, hey, if we just draft a bunch of locations and bodyguards, like, we're probably going to win this, So it takes a little bit of extra knowledge sometimes of what's in the packs and what's the overall theme of the set. But it's that extra layer of competitiveness and that mindset that goes into, deck building that gives you those choices, because you're probably never going to see these cards again unless you're playing with a small pot, and then a couple of the remaining cards get back to you, and they've been passed over 6 times already, right? So nobody really, really wants them. But it adds that extra little bit of flavor of competitiveness and mindset in between the two of them, at least. What do you prefer, Kirsten, out of the 2 modes?
I definitely like sealed because I have an easier time looking at all of my cards at once and deciding, okay, these will go well, or I definitely don't want this because that doesn't work at all. Whereas with draft, like you said, you're passing one pack along, so you may think like, oh, okay, this could work, but you have no idea what's coming next. So that's
Right.
really my problem, is like, well, I have no idea what I'm going to get. Will this work? Will I get something that works with this card? So I kind of struggle with draft a lot more than I do with sealed, I feel, because
Sure.
I'm kind of an overthinker, and I'm like, well, maybe I won't get something that'll work with that. Maybe I don't want to grab that.
And it feels bad too when you get a really good pack, like say one with an enchanted, and maybe I think a local at a local store had an enchanted Ursula in one, and then a legendary like a Robin Hood or something really good in that pack, and he had to pass one of them, right? That can't. Of course, he takes the enchanted just for the value, but that's another question when you are drafting it. At what point are you drafting for value, or are you drafting to win the game, right? So it creates these situations that sealed doesn't. Like when you get the pack, all those cards are yours. So I can't imagine the feeling of like, wow, I just pulled this Ursula, but this Robin Hood would be really good in this mode, especially if I can shift him, right? Or I don't know if that was the right example, but clearly he took what anybody would take in that situation. But it's just, I can't imagine being in that, knowing how I operate. Like, oh my God, like I'm passing a legendary away. I don't know about that, but some of the legendaries we know from playing for 10 months now can get away with being passed because they just don't work, So
thankfully, we're fortunate enough that we usually buy quite a bit of product, and by the time that we're doing draft, a lot of times we're not like picking cards because we need this
we
card.
Need that, right? Yeah.
A lot of times, by the time we're doing draft, we are picking what is best for that game decision at that point in time. I know that that's not the case for everybody, and that obviously complicates the decision-making process for that group of folks in that position. So I definitely feel for that, being like,
Sure.
oh, I really need this card, but also all these other cards are really good too.
Yeah,
sure.
That's why draft is generally best for later on in the set, so you're not sort of troubled with those decisions. But I definitely remember playing drafts with one of our friends, and she would get the package, she'd look at it and go, oh my gosh, I love this art. This one is so cool. And would draft, because this was, set 1 or set 2 where we didn't have, not everyone even had one of every one of these cards. And like,
it was a lot more limited for that one. Yeah.
If you do a draft at the beginning, and even when you do a sealed and stuff, you're ripping open these packs and seeing some of these cards for the first time. And so it's a lot harder for a draft even to just sort of run, smoothly, because everyone's sitting there staring and reading the cards. But I tend to agree that, having sealed earlier on in the set so that you get to keep all your cards, you're not having to make those decisions between, which legendary do I need for my play set versus which one do I actually want to play with. But later in the set, I tend to prefer draft. I know that I think at one of our locals, actually tomorrow night, I think, so before this even airs, we'll be doing a draft at one of our locals, and they do the new set like pre-orders based on that draft like standings, and they do a draft because, like you said, Brad, it evens that playing field out amongst everyone, where, you know, if you rip open this pack that has triple legendary, 2 legendaries and a foil legendary, and they're all Diablos, you know, they're all, and you're like, you don't just insta win because you pull that open, you take one, you pass it to the next person, and it shuffles all these around. But yeah, so I tend to like the draft, but I definitely agree that for newer folks, or even for folks who have played a bunch of Constructed and just, you know, are looking for the next thing to do before they build their deck and start in the competitive scene again, Sealed is a great way to start off the new set. And I think we have some advice here too about.
Yeah, I was gonna bounce it off back to you in regards to what are some strategies. I mean, you're the seasoned player here, the king of the set championships is what I've been referring to you as. I was going to make a joke just a minute ago about the draft being an even playing field unless you're in it. So, but no, what are some of the best advice points that you would give somebody drafting for the first time?
Yeah, draft or sealed. One of the things you want to do is sort of sort your cards based on their cost, and then I like to also sub-sort them based on inkable or not. So I found that on a playmat, a standard Lorcana playmat, you can put your cards down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I usually do like just 6+, right? So I sort all of my cards out in those piles based on their ink cost. And then, you know, above them, I'll just put a pile of 2 cost uninkables, go slightly above the inkables or whatever. And that helps you sort of visualize the curve of your deck, how many cards you have to play on 1, 2, 3, 4, and what cards you're sort of going to finish the game with. And then I like to go through each of those piles and try and just sort of do a first pass of, you know, do I want this card or not? Some cards you look at and you're immediately like, that's free. Obviously, I'm playing that. This past set, Pegasus. 1 cost, inkable, 1/1 evasive, 1 lore. That's free. That goes in almost 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, whatever. That's going in your deck. So you put that down. And then, you know, I'll make these piles sort of ones that I know I want to play and ones that seem like maybe they could work. This set as well had the whole hero synergy or the Madrigal synergy. And so I would tend to put those sort of in the maybe pile, and I would look through and I'd do the same thing for all these numbers of, you know, all the ink costs of cards. And then when I decided, you know, I definitely want these, right? I look at the ones I definitely am keeping for all of them. Are there a lot of Madrigals in there? Do they happen to be a lot of heroes, right? Did the cards that I pick because they are good on their own, do I also get benefit from them as being a hero or a Madrigal or whatever else this sort of semi-situational card that you were considering, you know, might go into play? A big one is items. Items at locations, maybe. They were, like you said, in that one set. But items always tend to have these sort of pitfalls where it's like, if you have the most items, you get this, or banish an item, gain 2 lore. And you think, oh, well, I'll be able to play some items and then I'll banish them. But ultimately, a lot of those combos can be sort of pitfalls. You want good value cards that are great on their own, so that no matter what, when you have them in your hand, you have something to do with them, and they advance your board state or your win condition in some way. So you sort of avoid those combo cards, especially in draft, because in sealed you get to look at your cards and you can say, all right, I have 20 Madrigals, right? But in draft, you grab that one Madrigal, and then the person next to you is like, oh, I could do Madrigals. And the person next to them is like, oh, I could do Madrigals. And then all of y'all are grabbing all the Madrigals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like you can't be searching for the same thing. It can be a really risky situation. but make sure you have enough of sort of each number. I tend to want to have less of the early, and you obviously can't have too many of the late, but you want to kind of think of your game as sort of a crescendo, like in music, where you need something to play on one, so maybe 6, 8-ish, maybe 4 even is fine of the 1 drops, and then 8 or so of the 2 drops, and then 3s and 4s, 5s. You can sort of have as many as you need, and then you want a good amount of those 5 drops, because ultimately you're going to end up top decking, and the other person's going to end up top decking, and you want to be able to flip over a 5 drop Li Shang that is a 5/5 that quests for 2, not a 1 drop Olaf that is a 1/2 that has support. Like you don't. So just enough to sort of get you crescendoed to that point where you're able to just play a big person after big person after big person every turn, and you'll find that there's no removal, really. Again, I haven't looked at all the cards, so obviously this set Brawl existed. At one point, Medusa was in draft and sealed, Tremaine, Dragonfire, all kinds of cards were at one point in draft and sealed, but look through the cards, figure out what kind of removal there is, and chances are you're going to find that they can't really do anything about your cards.
Yeah.
So if you draft cards that are just inherently good on their own, they're going to have a hard time dealing with it. Make good decisions, draw as many cards as you can, and like I said, play those big characters one after another, and hopefully go win like a nice fancy new playmat or something. A lot of these places will do playmats or more packs of the new set. That's what everyone needs, right?
Yeah, that's what we're doing on drop weekend is pack per win and a playmat for first place. So I feel like that's pretty standard for most places based on allocation of product, which isn't so much a problem with packs anymore. I think the playmats still, they only get a few of, so we're very lucky to have stores being generous enough to throw that into the prize pool. But yeah, back to your strategies. I agree with most of it. I found out pretty early on in the early sets that things like evasive, those kind of abilities that protect your character, and they're on itself really, really helps out, because if somebody doesn't know that they should be drafting evasive, then you're just going to quest all the way to 20 if they don't have the removal for it, right? They wouldn't be able to challenge it without that evasive feature. So it very, very much comes down to knowing the cards, knowing, the curve as Andy described. And I like to also, load up on low cost cards like 2, 3, 4s, because then you can get more characters out and even flood the board sometimes. And I understand what Andy was saying with the top decking, the higher cards, definitely much bigger threat. But if they can't answer your board with numerous low cost people out there, you're going to keep questing out there too. So I like to think that Ravensburger takes limited in consideration when they do release sets, why we have so many commons and cards that don't get really played in competitive, because they are modes that people enjoy. And so I feel like they have to consider the amount of removal and the amount of abilities that go into these common cards that you're going to see in, 3 out of 5 packs sometimes, right? So for these kind of modes. How about you, Kirsten?
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on any of those?
No, I completely agree. I don't have nearly as much good advice to provide to the listeners out there, but I definitely take the good advice that he has given everybody, because I hear it plenty myself.
Sometimes.
But
One thing
it all definitely makes sense, and I definitely try to make sure that I've got a good spread of options essentially in my deck. I don't want just all 1 drops. I don't want all 8 drops either. And the one thing that definitely has gotten me and I've learned from is keep your uninkable cost super low.
Exactly.
I know that especially recently in the last couple of drafts or sealed events that we've done, I think I've done less than 5. I think I've been like 2 or 3. Like, I'll just avoid them at all costs. Those are definitely ones that I set to the side in my pile of 10 or so that I'm not going to put in my deck at all. It's just not worth not being able to ink something, because a lot of times you don't have the card draw that you really would in a normal constructed situation.
Exactly.
So you can't refill your hand. Every turn you're still going to be inking and playing something more than likely, but you're not going to have the ability to refresh your hand. So just having the option to ink it and not be stuck with 3 or 4 uninkable cards and only being able to ink for 2 cards and still top decking uninkables, that's definitely something to be mindful of, in my opinion. That's the most helpful thing for me.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the best pieces of advice is the inkable count, or the uninkable count staying super low. Generally, the uninkables are uninkable because they're really good cards, but like Andy touched on, in this format, you might not be getting that full value, as Kirsten touched on with the draw, that you probably don't have. You're going to get to a point where you're top decking, and if you draw an uninkable that you can't play, that's just a dead turn, right? One thing that I did watch this week was a video by a friend of the show, Katie, at the Lore Keepers Inn. She introduced me to a term that I never heard of before, and I think maybe Magic players might have probably heard of this, and I thought that I had maybe heard of most of these terms in the 10 month of playing Lorcana, but have you guys ever heard of bread? BREAD.
I like bread. I like rolls.
So do I. Yeah.
And, croissants are lovely.
What about in the sense of cards?
Yeah, it's like an evaluation system, right?
It's actually an acronym.
Yeah, it's an acronym. So I've seen this before. It roughly applies to Lorcana, right? Did she apply to Lorcana? Yeah. That would be awesome.
Do you have any idea? Have you looked it up yet? I want to see if you can guess what the acronym is.
I don't remember what it is. I've looked it up before for draft strategies, but
sure. So let me read it off to you real quick. It's BREAD, BREAD, and it is described as an acronym. So it goes bombs, removal. I guess bombs is a term in Magic, probably some instant removal. I'm thinking bombs and removal are kind of one and one. I don't know. I've never played Magic, but it's bombs, removal, evasion, which works for Lorcana, right, with the evasive characters, aggro, and dud. I think she called it dreg. I think that's a Magic term, but dud meaning like this card is worthless in this format. We're not going to play this. So I think it's an interesting term, something I never heard of before. The definition is a general guideline strategy for prioritizing picks and building a deck in sealed formats. So yeah, bomb, removal, evasion, aggro, and dud. And if you remember that, you can kind of apply that. Like, hey, this is some good removal. I might need this, especially if it's inkable or some format. Evasive is always good, and then aggro is going to get you more lore than just a regular card, like a 2 lore person, or if you can flood the board with aggro characters to get to the race to 20 quicker than your opponent. So I thought that was interesting. I never heard that before.
Yeah, definitely. I think bombs actually refers to like big cards, like good cards, really good cards. Like I think.
Oh, I think you're right.
I guess that would make sense.
Like Diablo's a bomb, right? Robin Hood was a bomb. Be Prepared's a bomb. Those are cards that are just, if you see that card, you take that card first. Then removal is great because it makes any other card essentially have value still, right? Like if you play a card that's not as good as their card and they played a better one than you, but now you remove their card, well, now your dud now moves up a step or whatever. And then, like you said, evasion, which is not just evasive, which might get confusing, but also things like ward. Bodyguard is a form of evasion. It helps your aggro. That is a step sort of worse than evasion. It helps them get even more value. But yeah.
And you were right.
Yeah,
you were right about bomb. I didn't read the card. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'm just really interested. You said they did a video on this. We'll have to link it. I definitely want to go watch that because that sounds really cool. Like I said, I've heard of this theory before, but hearing it applied to Lorcana is awesome. I'm
for sure. For her name's Katie. She runs the Lore Keepers Inn on YouTube. We'll put a description or a link in the description down below. And it's just a great video on terminology for the event of sealed and drafts that are coming up with the new set coming out. And I found it really fascinating and wanted to share that. So, yeah. So that's where we are. Does anybody have anything else about sealed or drafts before we move on to our villain of the week?
No, I'm good. Go out there, play some sealed draft. Let us know how it goes in the comments. Have some fun. Let us know. For a while there, we had like that sealed and draft like luck. I think she pulled an enchanted like Peter Pan at one sealed event, and then the next night we went to another sealed event, and I pulled the Robin Hood, or not, the Hook, the Captain Hook, and the Peter Pan that go together.
And they go together.
Yeah, from the other set, and I was like, it was great. This, like she said, this set we had terrible luck, but go out there, have fun, pull an enchanted. Let us know about it in the comments.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm looking forward to it. All right, that brings us to our favorite segment of the week. That is the villain of the week. And since we have Kirsten with us today, we decided to go with one of her favorites and was going to see if you wanted to reveal it.
Sure, I'll take a stab at it.
Yeah.
So the first villain of the week with a rule of villainy, by chance, actually. So it's actually the 9th rule of villainy. The subtext, flavor text, if anybody wants to take a guess, is when all else fails, turn into a dragon, which I'm sure gives it away for everybody. It is the 9-cost inkable Maleficent monstrous dragon, 7 strength, 5 willpower. So she's a big girl, basically. Her ability is when you play her, you may banish a chosen character. So she is in herself a little mini be prepared for one of the opposing characters on the other side of the board. But she also lures for 2, so she is a big quester and a big damager.
Yeah, she's one of the rare legendaries of set 1, and Dragonfire on a body. It's pretty brutal, especially in the blue-red, where I found a lot of value in her. Is if you could ramp her out super early, or even on the Mufasa deck, the red-yellow Mufasa, if she comes out on a Mufasa banish on turn 6 and just burns something, it's absolutely wild to play. But for that 9 cost, I think at the time in set 1, she was the highest cost card in the game. Does that sound right?
And she was extremely hard to get into play.
A lot of times she was ink. Yeah.
A lot of times she was certainly ink. And I wish that she was more playable in Ruby Amethyst, but it's just desperately hard to get to 9 ink. And by that time, you'll probably be prepared ink. So
yeah, and you've probably inked her a couple times too, and it's just taking up slots in your deck. But yeah, I've always liked it. I finally got my second one. I've never actually pulled this card out of all the chapter 1 that I've opened. I traded for my first one with my buddy Alex, and then Ron, who you guys have, villain Ron, who any listeners or viewers have seen on our gameplay video, gifted me one last week. It was just incredibly kind of him, which amplifies my deck a little bit. In I don't like running any one of. So if I'm running blue red again or something, I feel comfortable running 2 dragons. But yeah, always liked the card. She's just been elusive to me. I've never been able to actually pull her.
I desperately wish they had made her an enchanted the first chapter. I feel like it would have been a great card to be an enchanted.
Even the foil is so pretty.
They gave her a mat and everything. You couldn't have given her an enchanted in the first chapter with a Maleficent. Nonetheless, I mean, I'm happy with the Maleficent from third chapter. What chapter was
the Enchanted?
That?
That was chapter 3.
Chapter 3. That Enchanted from Maleficent, but man, they really missed a mark on that one. I feel like they should have made her an Enchanted, to be honest.
For sure.
Andy, do you find any secret uses with this card that not a lot of people think about, or is there any tech that you would recommend trying with her?
I have seen this latest set. It actually got used against me maybe twice in the final set championships I played against. I believe the item card is Vitalosphere. It's the 1-cost item, pay 1, banish it, and chosen character gets +2 in rush. And so you combo that with this Maleficent Dragon, and you can not only kill the character at the castle that as the Ruby Amethyst player going against Red Blue, I would, play a castle and something like a goat or a rabbit, and I'd be able to move it to the castle. And typically what happens is they're able to take out one or the other and play the dragon, throw away the Vitalosphere, slam the dragon into it. It is really nice because it has that 7 attack, but generally it won't survive, right? If you're playing that, I'm kind of probably trying to be prepared you at this point, because at least some of the Ruby Amethyst lists, in fact, I should definitely say this. Last podcast, I believe it was, I was very critical of the no Tremaine, no Bee King Undisputed list. With the addition of the Magic Brooms that we saw the winner of Dallas come out with. I tried it out. I figured best way to, see whether I'm right or wrong is to try it out. And I was able to, win a set champions with that list. No Bee King, no Tremaines, big Sisu even, and the additional 1-drops of the Magic Broom. But when you're running that deck, you have 4 cards that can deal with a Maleficent Dragon. And when you're playing against Red Blue, you have 4 Maleficent Dragons and 4 Tamatoas, which is another card that you can't deal with without a Be Prepared. So, I understand the value of not having the Bee King. Bee King, that 1-for-1 trade isn't always great. And if it's not the only card they have on there, it just dives in value. And blue steel players like yourself are getting smart enough to just play something like Argus or Smee next to the Tamatoa, nullifies those cards. So not only is Maleficent Dragon, Dragonfire on a stick, it is a 2-lore dime target. It can take out a castle in one swing, and it is darn stinking hard to remove. So, yeah, and it definitely should have been enchanted. I agree.
I guess I got to ask the Vince question. Is there anything you would change about the card?
It should be an enchanted.
Aside being enchanted, yeah.
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I really like the fact that it's inkable.
Yeah.
9 cost is kind of high, I guess. Be Prepared, 7 cost uninkable. You can clear the whole board. It only clears one person.
Yeah.
Maybe lore a little bit more, I guess. Could be an option that I would maybe.
Are you trying to make it better?
Yeah, obviously I'm going to try and make it better,
I think
it's only the villain of the week because I'm here.
I think
it's a good choice.
I think they need to do something with the dragon keyword that it has on it. It's a Storyborn villain dragon. Maybe we don't need to errata the card. Maybe we can buff the card externally, right?
The dragon, yeah, it's one of those things like dragon and mentor, and there's
right.
Different
There's going to be
titles
something
it's going to buff those in some regard. I remember when Set 2 came out, Set 2 is the one that has the Imperial bow, right? Or not the Imperial bow, the Fang crossbow,
right?
Where it was revealed, they're like, oh, this instantly banishes a dragon, and I was like, oh, we're gonna, there's only a couple dragons if I don't even know if there's more than one in Set 1 than Maleficent, but I'm like, oh, we're going to start getting more dragon class characters here. But
we didn't.
I don't think. I mean, we did.
Mim
We got
Dragon.
some Sisus. We got Mim Dragon. We got the Sisus. But then the Fang crossbow just never got any play because the dragons were never prevalent. It was maybe something in a limited format where it does damage that's not dragons, but it instantly banishes dragons. So maybe it got some kind of play there, but yeah, I'm with Andy. It'd be really cool to see some of these titles. I guess I don't know what the actual word is for them. I always call them titles. Get more use out. classifications.
Classifications, yeah.
Like we saw with heroes, with the starter
Right.
deck, the hero starter deck this time, right? Where
Sorceress, I think, is another main one.
Yep. Sorceress, mentor, king. We've seen triggers on kings and princes and things like that.
Princess.
So it'll need to be a card. Excuse me. It'll need to be basically a card that already that gets a lot of value from already good cards. If you think about Bucky and the Floodborn classification, Bucky triggered off Floodborns. Now every single Floodborn immediately got a ton of value in green steel. And so it was like, sweet. If there was a card that says like your villains get +1 lore and it's a 1-cost item in blue that makes you draw a card when you play. It's a popsicle that just gives your villains +1 lore or something. You know, that now every villain card becomes slightly more valuable in this blue red deck or blue steel deck or something like that.
There's a couple villain characters like that out there already,
Tamatoa.
right?
Yeah.
There's an amber. No, there's an amber queen in set 3 that I think makes your villains have more strength or more.
That's what you meant.
And then the Floodborn Hades in set 1 makes all your villains, or maybe he quests more for every villain that you have on the board as well.
Yeah.
So there are a few things like that in play, but any more cards like that would be fun to play around with, because I know people have been talking about wanting to do princess decks and villain decks, and I know the Brooms deck deals with like sorcerers. If there's a sorcerer in play, you can do some kind of bounce or something. So yeah, I'm just curious if they'll ever do anything with dragons and mentors and other ones that I didn't even know mentor existed until like a month ago, and I'm like, oh, that's a classification I've never paid attention to, and that's something. So
yeah, cool. The like year and a half that I played Magic the Gathering when I was like 12 or 13 or whatever, I don't know how far into the lifespan of Magic the Gathering that was, but there was a deck that I played that was basically heavily based off of the classifications of characters, right? Okay. The idea was you would discard a bunch of your cards. You just sort of mill yourself, right? And when you got a bunch of these cards in your discard, there was one that said, choose a classification, a character type, a creature type, or whatever. Zombie, vampire, undead, goblin, whatever. And then return all of them from your discard into play. So it was this big, I'm just discarding all of my cards. I choose, guess what? All the cards in my deck are all the same kind of creature type. And then, you play this one card, you get them all back, one big shebang, all the fireworks and stuff. It was admittedly a meme deck. I was 12. What do you want from me? But, that existed in Magic the Gathering at that point in time. I can definitely see cards in the future coming into Lorcana with a similar sort of, taste to them, where it's like you play this item and it says, choose a classification. Characters of that classification get something, right? Where
Sure.
You're sort of, can kind of hone your deck better around these classifications of characters. I think another one that happened was the Grand Duke, right? There was a hot minute there where like Steel Song players are like, wait a minute, every single character I'm playing for the first 4 to 5 turns of the game is a prince, queen, king, or princess or whatever. Why not play Grand Duke,
Yep.
So we'll see. Hopefully we see more cards like that where they provide inherent value to cards that are essentially already good, that people aren't afraid to play, that people can actually afford to play in their deck.
I agree. Any last thoughts on the Maleficent Dragon, guys?
Should have been an enchanted.
Definitely should have been an enchanted.
Well,
That's all.
We can start a hashtag, and maybe we'll get a retro enchanted in future sets, like they're doing with the playmats,
Yeah, set champs. Well,
set champs dragons. Let's go.
What are the playmats this set? I completely forgot. You said I have a chance to win
Belle,
one, right?
And
Belle,
what
and look at
Belle?
this family.
Look at this family, Casa.
Yeah.
It's the purple
It's the,
bell, right?
The purple bell,
Mhm.
the one
That-
that was really cool in the purple steel
I know I went
deck
to the
this week.
Purple Bell one.
Or this week, this set.
All right.
Yeah, I'm
Bell
still in
one.
awe of that synergy of him, or of her and Smee, and I'm like, that is really cool. Just moving that damage off of him that he's naturally going to
sure.
accrue. But
Yeah.
all right, if we're done with Villain of the Week, that's probably going to wrap up this week on the Rules of Villainy, guys. We did it.
Definitely.
Woohoo!
Yeah. All right. If you guys enjoyed this show, listeners, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We're also on YouTube, so please be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of our next episode. I want to apologize to Gantu. We did run out of time, so until next week, stay safe, fellow villains. Be wary of wannabe heroes who want to disrupt your villainous plans, and as always, remember the rules of villainy.